Hello, everyone. Pastor Winston here. Guess what? We're in the letters of John. We're in Second John. We're going to finish it up with this devotion here today as we look into His Word. So let's not waste any more time. We'll head for there. I'll diminish myself so that He might increase. So we have the letters of John, episode 20, and 2 John 7 through 13 is the burden of this particular letter. So just by way of sort of reminder of where we've been, the last time we really asked the question, what are this pastor's concerns? In 2 John 1 through 6. And the summary was really to walk in the truth and walk in love. And sort of summed up in chapter 4 here, verse 4, I rejoiced greatly to find some of your children walking in the truth, just as we were commanded by the Father. And now I ask you, dear lady, that's the church, as though I were writing you a new commandment. Not as though I were writing you a new commandment, but the one we had from the beginning, that we love one another. So you can see that John envisions an obedient community that will devote itself to God completely through their love for Him. And so as we go, we'll take a look now at the burden with that background, the truth and love. We'll take a look here at the burden of the letter and is to guard the message of the church. We all have that responsibility. Scripture is, for many deceivers have gone out into the world, those who do not confess the coming of Jesus Christ in the flesh. Such a one is the deceiver and the antichrist. Watch out. That's my own little translation right there. Watch out so that you may not lose what we have worked for, but may win a full reward. Let's unpack that a little bit here. This is his first firm word about guarding the message of the church. Watch out, because there are deceivers out there. And that word in the Greek is planoi, also known as liars. And then he says, so that you may not lose what we have worked for. Well, these are John's people. These are his churches. He's had influence in all of their workings, and he's coming to them in a pastoral way and saying, hey, let's be steadfast in the truth and in love here. He says, everyone who goes on ahead and does not abide in the teaching of Christ does not have God. Whoever abides in the teaching has both the Father and the Son. In 1 John 2:22, he says it like this. Who is the liar but he who denies that Jesus is the Christ? This is the Antichrist who denies the Father and the Son. So he wants us to stand firm in the doctrine. Berge makes his comment. He said the charismatic teacher prophets have proposed a view of Christ that runs ahead, that pulls up the ancient moorings of tradition. This is why 1 John repeats again and again the idea, let remain in you what was from the beginning. And I've listed all the references there that you can take a look at your leisure. But as we head on in this, we look at 2 John 10 and 11. We're talking about closing the gates of the church. When is that really necessary? Serious error demands a serious response. And notice I did not say severe. And he says, if anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, the teachings of Christ, do not receive him into your house or give him any greeting. For whoever greets him takes part in his wicked works. Now, this has to be contextualized in what John is facing here. These little churches have come under influence of false teachers, and he is calling those who remain in these churches to be steadfast and to take action and to throw them out so they don't, spoil the whole church and send it awry and into deep sin. And so this is heavy on his heart. And he says it's time then to take action. In 29 years of the church, we've We've had 2 excommunications, and both situations were sins that the person refused to acknowledge. And even when they did, they took no responsibility for it. And it became necessary to write a letter to the whole congregation and let them know what had occurred and take action on it. And it was hard to do, very hard to do. One of those people tapped Pastor Mark on the shoulder in the Safeway lot about a year and a half later and said, you were right and I was wrong. So there is redemption in that. That's the purpose of church discipline is the purification of Christ's church and the redemption of lost sinners. And you don't do that with a fist. You do that with an open heart, but a strong urging to come back to faith, come back in it or else. And sometimes or else has to happen. So that's the case. I mean, think of it like this. Suppose a pastor, or whatever they call him in a Jehovah's Witness church, that does not believe that Jesus was the Son of God. They believe that he is a man who became like a God, and therefore, through his perfect works, became the Son of God, but began to teach that in our church. Well, we would have to take action. We would warn him. We'd give him admonition. Then we would go to him with a couple people and warn him again if he continued. And then if he continued after that, we would bring him before all the people and probably excommunicate the person. So that's just the kind of action that would be necessary. So finally, John says to close his letter, "This pastor, though I have much to write to you, I would rather not use paper and ink or a chat box, or an Instagram or an email or any of that. Instead, I hope to come to you and talk face to face so that our joy may be complete. The children of your elect sister, the church where he is at this time, greet you also." So stay tuned. In 2 weeks, we'll explore